What's up, K-Swiss family? Welcome back to a weekly episode of K-Swiss Live, where I, your host, Omar Prestwich, and the infamous Barney Waters, president of K-Swiss, my co-host. Technically, I'm his co-host.
This is your show.
We talk about things that are going on within our culture, K-Swiss, and also things that we're into. And so this week's episode is going to be a little bit different. I want to actually push more of a conversation type setting. I think when we do these episodes, we're so like product driven, but when we turn off the cameras and the live, we start having real conversations. And I'm always like, damn, this is what the podcast should be.
Good. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because I'm in here without any notes and no idea what we're going to talk about. So let's get into it.
There's a lot of things that happened this week. I think one of the most important things that's impacted a lot of people, especially us in Los Angeles, is the passing of a legend.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, of course. Just been a weird week, I think. Been a strange effect that it's had on everybody. And, you know, especially even myself, I just felt really off this week. And, you know, found myself asking, like, why would it affect me so much? You know, I didn't know the guy and I didn't know Kobe. I did meet him one time, but very briefly. But I think it just shows you how fragile life is, you know. And I think that when it happens to someone who's so, you know, in your mind, such a hero or so indestructible, as like Superman almost, if you follow sports or, you know, culture. And so for something like that to happen to him, is just so shocking and sudden, and it makes you think, well, if it could happen to him, it can happen to any of us. And I think that's probably what left that sick feeling all week. And then obviously not to mention all the other people who are affected directly and indirectly. It's just horrifying. So and you know, personally it happened out near me, you know, near where I live, and he was on his way to Mamba Academy, which is in my neighborhood. You know, I actually trained there for something else, but I go there twice a week and I was there the day before, and that tournament was going on. So there's a lot of parallels, and it just makes you think, God, that, you know, it could happen to anyone, and that's life is short. And we always talk about that, about how you've got to sort of take every day as it could be your last, or at least operate that way. And that's the truth of it, is, you know, you've got to make the most of it before it's too late, because, you know, nothing's given. And I think I've noticed also people reaching out a bit more this week, and I've tried to do that myself. I'm not the best communicator. Anyone who's a friend of mine knows I'm not the best at reaching out. But I think I've tried a little bit, and other people who I've noticed have tried with me, is just calling people and saying what's up. And there's a sense that you can feel that increasing.
That was one thing that really impacted me. All day I thought about it, you know. He was with his family. There was family members involved. And at the end of the day, what really hit me the most was exactly what you said. He was literally doing something that he does every day. Yeah. He's going to practice. And I actually ended up I wrote this long text message to every single member of my family. And to me, it was like, I don't reach out to you guys enough. And what that left me was that feeling. It was, I could go to work and something could happen, or in any moment. Yeah. And what are those moments that you're reaching out to the people that you love?
Yeah, and I think, you know, what I've always tried to do is, you know, make sure that if something ever happened to anyone or was close to me, is that nothing is left unsaid. So, you know, my grandma passed away recently, and it's kind of shocking to think someone my age still had their grandma around, but I said to her all the time whenever I saw her, I'm like, you know, we had our final words, because I travel back to England, you know, a couple times a year, and I said goodbye to her. We said goodbye to each other so many times, you know, and then the next time I go, I'm like, oh, you're still here, you know. But by the time she did actually pass away, there was nothing left unsaid. You know, I had no regrets. I'd said everything. And so, yeah, sometimes you just got to you tell people how you feel, and then there's no regrets. If you know, I wish I'd have said that, you know, just tell them, you know. I think sometimes we're so insecure about revealing those true thoughts, and for what, you know. Anyway, so you know, life moves on, and
so rest in peace, and our heart truly goes out to everyone involved. Yeah. So, one thing transitioning, Kobe left a massive legacy beyond basketball. He had a big entrepreneur spirit.
Yes.
And that's like one thing that we're really known for is that entrepreneur lifestyle and the messages that goes on. This week, we actually put out a podcast episode, or I put it out again. It was one that you had with AJ Roland.
Yeah. Yeah, from
hashtag lunchbag.
Yeah.
What stood out to me the most about that episode and why I wanted to reshare it and have you talk about it is you can do a lot of good in your own neighborhood. You don't have to like join anything crazy. You don't got to go overseas. You don't got to quit your life. You can literally get with a group of friends and do positive stuff.
Yeah.
So what stood out to you about that conversation?
Well, I think everybody wants to do good, and everybody talks about being, giving back and being altruistic and doing stuff for the environment. I mean, we know all those things that we're supposed to say, but when you really look at it, not many people actually do anything.
It's true,
right? I mean, everybody knows we're supposed to, and we all aspire to it, but we don't really do it. And the truth is that, AJ actually did it and actively does it. And I think that's what impressed me most is he's just out there getting the stuff done. And then the other thing I really liked about him is he didn't claim ownership and restrict it to control it. He basically then open sources it and gives all those assets of what that is and the blueprint to how you do one of these events, which is essentially getting a group of friends and making a meal, sandwiches for the homeless, and putting a personalized note in to show that people care about it. It's not just the food, it's also the message and the hope and somebody's actually thinking of you. And he gives all that away, and other people then create those in other cities, and he doesn't claim to control it and says, hey, everybody do it, and I just thought that was great, because so often, we want everything to be ours and it's mine and I want credit for it. Whereas not only is he doing the thing for real, but he's also not claiming credit or doing it for his own personal ego. He's giving it. And I think we can all learn from that. So, and, just being like less selfless is something, even in the most minimal way, is, when you operate in your day, whether you're commuting or you're on a train, in the subway, or driving, is, are you just focused on what does this all mean to me? Or are you actually like, how do I be a little nicer to impact others? Because as you go through your day, you're impacting everyone, whether you smile at someone or you scowl at someone or you push past them on the stairs and or whatever it is you do. And if you actually, I've tried to do that myself, is like think a little bit more about how can I positively impact people, and not necessarily by donating money or baking a sandwich, but just in how you kind of interact with strangers when you walk around. Simple things that quite often we get so tied up in our own existence and that we forget that. And life would be better if we were all like slightly nicer to each other.
It's one reason I always say, when people say, hey, how are you doing? I always say, super awesome.
Yeah.
Or I try to like engage that conversation, because most people aren't wired. You say, hey, what's up? How are you? Oh, I'm good. All right, cool.
Yeah.
That's not like a real conversation. You don't really care.
No. When I first moved to America 20 some years ago, everybody says, what's up? That's how you say hello in America. And I wasn't used to that. So everybody would be like, hey, what's up? And I'd be like, well, actually, and I'd start explaining what was going on. And then I look up and they'd walked off down the street. It took me ages to be able to like not respond to someone saying what's up. Just to realize it's like, what's up? That's it.
No, so anyways, if you haven't listened to the episode, check it out. Honestly, it has a lot of good tips in general on like how to make a positive impact. But I thought the whole conversation was great. And AJ's an entrepreneur. Yeah,
he's a serial entrepreneur. He also went on to open. He has a sports bar in Hollywood. He opened the Hilltop Cafe. I think he's gone on to open more of those. He's got a lot of things going on. Super connected, great guy, smart guy, and really living. And he was pretty honest about his own. That he's got his own, had his own demons in the past and worked through those. So it's a great example of someone who's not making any excuses and just getting things done.
I love that. Speaking of not making any excuses, I saw a book on your desk.
Which one?
Which one exactly? The TEDx book.
Oh no, that's TED.
TED Talk.
Talk Like TED.
Okay.
Talk Like TED.
What's up with that? What are you brewing?
Oh, that's a great book. So Talk Like TED is a book that is how to give great presentations. TED is the kind of ultimate in public speaking. You know, anyone who does public speaking, it's like the dream is to talk on the TED stage.
That's a goal of mine.
Is it? Yeah, me too. Me too. I'd love to, right? But then you actually watch the people doing it and you think, goodness, what am I going to talk about? These people are excellent. And the Talk Like TED actually analyzed all of those speeches and has spoken to all of the people involved and really condensed what goes into a fantastic TED Talk and how the best TED speakers actually not only create those stories, telling the stories, but the practice and the training and the fine tuning that goes into that. You know, you have to actually audition for those, and there's a whole process to be able to get onto that main stage, and it explains all that. But the crux of that book is about how do you, what are the key elements of a great presentation, and it's fantastic, and it boils it down to a very simple method, simple kind of template to follow of how to create great presentation. At the time, we had a big sales meeting. This is going back a couple years, and I said anyone who's going to present on our sales meeting has to read the book. Okay, if you don't read the book, you're off the agenda, right? And so everybody did, and everybody then built their presentations based off the Talk Like TED philosophy. Yeah. And we reviewed everybody's beforehand to make sure it was all good. And by far, that was the best.
Did you cut anybody?
Set of presentations. And I don't think so, but by far the best set of presentation we've ever done. And people still talk about, I actually still talked about this the other day, because actually that book, I actually dusted the dust off of that book when I
picked this back up
yesterday, and I was talking to Keating about it. People still talk about his presentation from that meeting.
Brian Keating, for the listeners, he is the senior designer here at K-Swiss. He's been with us for 29 years.
Not 29,
25. Yeah, still 27.
The guy's
28.
only 32, for God's sake.
Oh, come on.
But he's a legend, K-Swiss legend. But he took that model. He actually tells a story. Like when I told him he had to read the book, he was really not happy, and he apparently went home to his wife and said, "You won't believe what Barney's done. He's making us read a book," and he said some choice words about me. He told me this, and afterwards he's like, "My God, that was one of the best books I've ever read." And his were, I think, by far the best presentation of that day. And he's since then, every time he presents, he uses the same. Most of us went back to, after that meeting where we had to read the book, we went back to our old ways.
Yeah.
But Brian has always still follows the model, and his presentations are always the best.
We did this last sales meeting. I got to speak with Brian, and my favorite part was at the very end, he came up with like a cup of water.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about sustainability, and he had like some new material that we're using on future product that dissolves in water.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was like the
wow moment. There's a word for it. There's a word for that, like magical moment. And there's a great example in the book of Bill Gates, who not about Microsoft. It was probably the Gates Foundation. He did a speech about malaria, and he did a moment of magic like that with a mosquito in a glass. If you read the book, look at that. That's a great example. And yeah, Brian is like still doing it, still nailing it. And so that's a great book for anybody who wants to do it. And one of the best things I remember is, when you have a presentation to do, the first thing most people do is open PowerPoint.
Yeah.
But what you should do is, first of all, create the story that you want to tell, figure out what am I trying to say, how am I going to say it, and then use the slides to support the story, not go straight into building slides, which is what most of us do, is create compelling story first and frame the story and the elements to the story. Anyway, I feel like I've talked way too long about that, but it is something I love, and I love to present, and I wish I was better at it, and it does take a lot of practice.
I love it. I love standing in front of people. It gives me this adrenaline. When I used to be in high school and I was a wrestler, that feeling of right before you're about to wrestle, the butterflies in your stomach, and then you just kind of got to focus, and it's 1 versus 1. That feeling is the same feeling that I get when I speak.
Yeah, and we got you on stage at the last sales meeting, and people say that it's the biggest fear of humans' biggest fear. They did a survey. The number 2 fear was death. Okay, people's fear. The number 1 fear was public speaking. So people are more afraid of public speaking than death. And so if you can do it naturally and comfortably, that's a huge advantage. And most people have to practice and get through those barriers. But, we put you up on there and gave you the shot, and you nailed it. But what I would say to people is, if you are in a company like that, ask for the opportunity to present. Like, hey, how about can I get a 10-minute slot, or can I, go up on stage and present something? And quite often, don't wait to be asked, is like, try and put yourself in that. And then you're going to be in a super uncomfortable situation because you're going to be like, oh my God, I've got what I asked for. Now what do I do? And that's when you put the work in to get ready for it. And I think, putting yourself into uncomfortable situations is how you grow. What did somebody said? The good stuff is on the other side of change or fear. Yeah, it's one of those expressions, which is very true. So yeah, don't be afraid to like ask to get onto an agenda, or hey, could I get a slot? I'd love to talk about this. And, maybe you won't always get a yes, but that could be the shot you need to break through.
It's also how you level up in every aspect of your life. For example, I've been here for a year or year and a half, and I really if I'm going to be here, I want to move as far as I can within the company and level up. And that takes, like you said, it takes asking, it takes learning, and it takes you have to take on more stuff and challenge yourself, because if you don't challenge yourself and you get used to the same little things, I think you lose the fire.
Yeah, of course. And people it's very rare for someone to come in and go, hey, I think it's time to give you a different job or the next job. That doesn't often happen. What usually happens is people just start evolving into the next job, and then you just become it. And then it's an obvious decision for someone to be like, hey, that guy's actually operating in a more senior level.
And then you get those opportunities. Vance Hayes, he talked about that. So if another podcast that I just put out yesterday or the day before for Turning Pro, I don't know if you know this, but Diane, who is the head of customer service here, her boyfriend is the senior vice president of operations for Kappa and BBC Ice Cream, two streetwear brands. But he talked about his story and how he's a college dropout. And as he was like leveling up within his career, all he said was, I would just learn and get better. And that is what kind of set him apart. And he became the president of Creative Rec at like 37. So that's just like great tips. Again, I wanted Barney to talk about that, because one thing I respect about Barney is he'll give you all the opportunities that you want, but almost like you don't really, you let the people kind of go for it.
Yeah.
Which I think...
Well, yeah, you give people the opportunity, but then you got to let them go for it, right? Because, when you manage a team or lead a team, is you need people in each of the positions who are better than you at those things, right? I think a classic management mistake is trying to be the best at everything because you're the boss,
right?
And tell everyone what they should be doing. Is the best leaders the ones who are hiring people who know more about that role than I do. So in other words, if I hire you to do social community, you've got to be better than me at it. So if you say this is what we should be doing, I'm like, okay, then I'll take your word for it. If I don't believe what you're saying, or I think I know better, then I hired the wrong person, and that's on me. So yeah, I mean, I think you give people the opportunities, but if they don't step up and do it, then they're probably not the right person to. If they need me to tell you what to do, then
it's good.
Do it myself.
It's also a good thing for that to happen, in my opinion, just because when those moments happen, it's that's where self-awareness kind of kicks in. You then have to be really honest with yourself about your work and what you're doing. So
yeah,
just my thought on that. Another thing I want to talk about based on entrepreneurship, drama.
Yes.
Have you heard or listened to his podcast called I wrote it down, Group Chat?
No, I haven't.
So he hangs out with a bunch of dudes, kind of like what we're doing right now, even though Mason's not talking. But they just sit around and talk about current events, culture, sneaker drop, etc. And one thing he mentioned that really stood out to me, I had a friend actually message me the episode, but Drama was talking about Little Jupiter.
Oh,
and
really?
I sent it to you. Drama was talking about Fashion Week and how influencer marketing and Instagram and all this stuff. But what stood out to me was when he talked about Little Jupiter, he was like, I didn't know anything about Little Jupiter. I've heard his name thrown around, and I know he's doing something with K-Swiss. But the word that he described with Little Jupiter was, it's a vibe.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, you're the one that reached out
to
Little Jupiter.
Yeah.
You found him.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think another way of saying that is it's about taste, somebody's taste. And when Drama said it's a vibe, what he meant is Instagram, quite often somebody's page is a curation of their taste.
Yeah.
And some people just have impeccable taste, and it's very rare for someone to have it so finely tuned that everybody wants to follow it. I would say I feel like I've got good taste, but it's obviously not great. It's obviously good. If it was really great, then everyone would follow me, right? Which they don't. So how come, hundreds of thousands follow him? Is that he's just nailed it so specifically to a vibe or a taste level of his. He knows who he's speaking to, and people just gravitate toward that. But it's his selection and curation of what he thinks is hot. And yeah, I think understanding that he was the guy with the ear of the right people, and then partnering them, that is influencer marketing. And I know people have got a lot to say about the goods and the bads of that. But I think in that case, that was really a good one. And it sort of proved itself in that we made shoes with him. Shoes are amazing. Some of the hottest stuff. They sold out and all the right people wearing them, et cetera, et cetera. So that one sort of played out as a good combination. And yeah.
Barney says he doesn't have, quote, good taste, but the reason why we're sitting where we are and we're facing back here is because you designed this. These are your photos.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, actually, my sister got me this one. This is Anthony Burrell print. My sister got me this one, and she has similar in her own home. And so there's stories behind all of this stuff. There's stories behind all of these, which I won't go into. But like I said my taste not bad, but it's not to a level that there's just some people that are fine tuned to such a level of expertise and just nailing a point of view, and everybody follows them. And there's tons of them on Instagram, as you all know, because we all follow them, whether it be, someone who's really into the outdoors. I follow a lot of outdoors focused people because I like camping, hiking, climbing. There's certain people out there who are just like got that down to a fine art, and you just can't wait to see this stuff.
I'm like, damn, how do I get my photos better? Or they have these photos where I'm like, I need to experience whatever they're experiencing.
Yeah. Well, look, it's the same. So we talked about Kobe off the top. The difference between an NBA player and a really good basketball player is it's just so far apart. And the dedication and the hours and the time and the details they're putting in is just intense, and so you think, oh, they're just slightly better. No, they worked so hard to get to that point. And Jupiter's the same way. Everyone's like, oh, he's just a guy that posts stuff on Instagram. No, he spends hours on this stuff. And, he was saying to me, it's exhausting sometimes to be that focused on it. It's not just him posting pictures on Instagram. That's what the rest of us do. And why don't he have this many followers? So again, to be the top of your game, whether it be photography, being an Instagrammer, being a basketball player, being in business, whatever it is, there's a ton of mediocrity, and it's pretty easy to be mediocre. To be the best or to be one of the few people that makes it to the top is so difficult, and it requires so much work. And the truth is 99.9% of people don't want it bad enough to do what it takes. Yeah. Everyone knows what it takes, but I can't be bothered. I'm just too tired today, And the person who isn't is the one who will end up making it. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Like there's obviously people who have a lot of luck, but generally speaking, you get out what you put in.
But the luck comes after. I feel really lucky with certain things that happened in my life. But then I look back, I'm like, well, that was like hours and years of whatever trying to get this far and getting better at this and getting out of my comfort zone. And then when opportunity or luck arose,
then you take it. That's the other thing, is you have to be ready to take advantage when opportunity knocks. You got to be ready to take advantage, to jump on. And if you do have a lucky moment, that's great. But a lot of people have that and it passes them by. So
yeah. Last thing, and then we'll wrap it up because we got to do some more work. We touched on this briefly after we chatted, but I wanted to end with this, which is the mindset of an entrepreneur. I don't know if a lot of you guys watch MMA, but did you watch the Conor McGregor fight?
Yes.
So at the end of the fight, I don't know if I told you, but if you watch it, you'll see that on the corner of Conor McGregor was Tony Robbins.
Right. Yes. That's a really interesting combination. Yeah.
And what stood out to me after the whole thing, because I was noticing throughout, before the fight happened and leading up to it, that Conor was a totally different, composed person.
Yeah. Well, I think he's one of those people that's operating at that other level, in that he's not just thinking about his, technical martial arts skills. He's gone beyond that to think about mindset. And, he's actually quite open about talking about that stuff. And to have Tony Robbins there, clearly he's thinking about mindset. And again, you could be a really good fighter. You could have great jiu-jitsu skills, or you could be great striking, or whatever it is that you do. But, the next guy's also thinking about, mindset training, or he's already doing visualization, or he's really focused on nutrition, or whatever it is, and going that extra mile, that extra step, or doing that extra set. And that's what it takes. And actually in that fight, I felt like Cowboy to some degree was like,
I got this.
Well, he'd already got the check, you know what I mean? It was like, I felt like he'd already won before he showed up, because that was his big night. Conor calls it a certain type of night. You probably know what it is if you like MMA. I'm not going to say it out loud. When you get that fight against Conor McGregor, it's a blank night. And he got his money, and he's like, great. And then he's like, oh, I have to fight him now. And, he got actually smashed in the first round. So, I think... hopefully next time he gets a better opponent.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to end with that, because that to me that was so cool to see. And even after he won, before he went all Conor McGregor, he went up to Cowboy and gave him a hug.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. And again, I think the topic, or the theme of this episode today is just do more good, be more kind, and keep hustling on the important things. I think that will always set you apart. It's what separates K-Swiss apart for reals. Everyone here, a lot of us are always trying to be better every single day, because all we're trying to do is level up, just like all of you.
Yeah, and we're a brand that's that big in a massive market with huge competitors that have thousands of times the money we have, thousands of times the resources and people we have. And we're competing in a really tough market. So, you can't come in at 50% and hope to win. You've got to be 110 every day to even stand a chance. So, I think that's part of being a small challenger brand. And a lot of people are in those brands, whether they're startups, whether they're established brands that are coming back. But yeah, I think, you can be successful and be considerate at the same time. They don't have to be two mutually exclusive things. You don't have to take everybody's head off on your way to the top. And one of the big things I've learned in my career is, people do business with people they like. Being the smartest is not always the most important thing. It's like, who do I trust? Who do I like? And if you're an arse, and you might be the smartest guy in the world, no one's going to want to do business with you. So, let's just be considerate to people as we still plow your way to the top, but, be nice to people on the way.
All right. Well, thanks for the chitter chat. Chat.
Likewise.
K-Swiss Live. That's what this podcast is called. It's no longer called the Inside K-Swiss Podcast. It's K-Swiss Live, and we'll keep it raw. Honestly, it's all about community, and it continues to grow. That's what I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it again. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Peace.